Hello, and welcome to another episode of Coffee with Delzi, a 60-minute conversation delivering insights and best practices from industry experts and, more importantly, your peers from around the country to help bring the espresso to your practice. I'm your host, Matt Delzingaro, or Delzi for short, and I'm so grateful to have you here to join us. Now, my guest needs no introduction, as he's become one of the most respected voices for advisors around the industry, and his name is Mr. Matthew Jarvis. Matthew's claim to fame is he was the 7th guest on the famous podcast done by Michael Kitces, right? The Financial Advisor Success Series. And not only that, Michael actually invited him back for a second episode, 247, as well. Matthew really values the fact that he's been a guest twice on that show. This is what's pretty cool. Michael Kitces is quoted saying, after he talked to Matthew and learned more about his practice, he said, wow, Matthew's practice is one of the most profitable, hyper-efficient lifestyle practice he's ever seen on a per hourly basis. Wow. So obviously, Matthew's no ordinary financial advisor. He spent the first 5 years of his career struggling to survive, uncertain if he could even pay his electric bill, and waking up each day trying to find the next excuse to why he wanted to quit. Now, a bear market woke him up. It forced him to burn the proverbial ships and start on a new path. And he was determined through whatever means necessary to not only stay in business, but to create a profitable practice focused on delivering value to his clients while still being an involved father and husband, ultimately becoming one of the most successful multi-million-dollar lifestyle practices in the industry. Now, Matthew today is on a mission. He wants to change the way financial planning is done through the Perfect RIA podcast, his coaching program, the Perfect RIA, with his partner, Micah, and his speaking engagements. Matthew shares his proven systems and processes to provide a better outcome, not only for financial advisors and their families, but their clients as well. Matthew packs a powerful message to all in the financial planning industry. And I got to say, I love his mantra. Mediocrity knows nothing higher than itself. So to be exceptional, you must do what works. And through this message and providing specific, actionable, predictable strategies, he's guided thousands of advisors through improving and doubling their practices and creating the life they deserve. And in today's conversation, what we're going to cover with Matthew today is, how do you stop playing office? And what do I mean by that is Matthew only works 26 weeks out of the year. That's why Michael Kitces named him one of the most profitable on an hourly basis and hyper-efficient practices across the country. And how to double your effectiveness while you are in the office. Understand why prospects say no and how to fix that. Matthew's going to share with us how to charge what you're worth and successfully graduate your clients to higher fees, right? And delivering massive value to your clients to do that. And the last but not least, which Matthew, this was the biggest obstacle for him and for most advisors I've seen in my travels, is just overcoming the head trash that holds advisors back from achieving their greatness. So here's what we're going to do. You're going to sit back, you're going to grab your cup of coffee, and you're going to enjoy the following conversation to help bring the espresso to your practice. Thank you. All right, folks, welcome to the show, Mr. Matthew Jarvis. I can't believe I actually have you on my show. This is absolutely incredible. I am very honored to have you. Thank you for joining.
It's my honor to be here. You and I were chatting before we hit record, and I actually owe like an enormous amount of my success to a wholesaler that was in my life. Fellow Michael Appleby, he was my Prudential wholesaler early in my career, And I would ask him, I'd say, hey, Michael, what are the most successful advisors doing? The advisors you meet with that are crushing it, what are they doing? And he introduced me to a coaching program, Tom Gow's coaching program, which Tom Gow passed away years ago. Yeah. And so I signed up for it. I had to go take out a new credit card because I had no money. I'd take a new credit card so I could go pay for the coaching program. I went and did everything that Tom said to do, and it transformed my practice. And a few years later, I met with Michael, who's now one of my best friends. And I mentioned to him, I said, Michael, I went from making no money to I did $1 million in GDC last year, and it's because you introduced me to this guy. And Delzi, he about fell out of his chair. He says, Jarvis, I told hundreds of advisors to do that. And you and one other advisor, the other advisor, Julia Carlson in Oregon, you were the only two that do it. Now you both have multi-million-dollar practices. So it was my wholesaler that wildly attributed a lot of my success. So when you said, Delzi, hey, listen, will you come on my show? Hands down, man. I'll show up at your house if we need to.
Folks, I don't know if you follow Matthew on LinkedIn, but he can be a tough nut. I love how you create all this just energy on LinkedIn through your comments, and you get people riled up, whether it's whether you're against or for the whatever they're talking about on the post. I love that energy and what you bring. And I was like, I have to get this guy on the show, but there's no way I'm going to get this guy on my show. I'm just a wholesaler outside of Philly. And it's amazing. Just like your buddy, Michael, the wholesaler. Yeah. Advisors come back and they're like, Delzi, some of these guests, I shouldn't say some, they say your guests just bring absolute value to my practice, whether I'm going to use it or not. And that's the shame of it all, is that 99% of the stuff you're going to share, they're probably not going to implement, it's sad.
Yeah, it is. It is. A quick sidebar here, Delzi, about being on your show. Like, I want to just highlight for advisors, this shows that you're a master of your trade, right? You reached out to me. You said, hey, I read your book. I loved your book. I'm giving it out to other advisors I meet with. Is there any way I could buy a box of your books? Yeah. So you're reaching out to me with value. You didn't reach out to me and say, hey, listen, could I waste a bunch of your time to help me out? You reached out to me with value. You flattered me, which is great. Like, I appreciate that too. You said, hey, I'm giving out your book. I love it. And I'm thinking, how do I return a favor to this guy? Which, as advisors, when we're prospecting, if I call Delzi up and hey, Delzi, I'd love to give you a second opinion about your finances, he's not going to care. He's not going to want to talk to me. But if I run into him and I'm like, hey, Delzi, dude, a bunch of my clients are getting killed on their estimated tax payment. Let me send you over this guide that you can use to give to your clients. Oh, wow, thanks. Because I'm focusing on delivering value, and then it's going to come back my way.
Man, you're like jumping jumping ahead, because I have so much to talk to you about, because you have the various topics that you bring to the table. So folks, Matt, I want you to tell us how you started in this business, because you said I was a struggling advisor, which kind of surprises me, because you started with your father right out of college.
Yeah, not exactly. I didn't go to college.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, no, I just want to correct that part of it. Yeah, that's an important distinction. Yeah. Oh, so my dad, Nathaniel Jarvis, he started in the industry in 1990 doing life insurance, right? Just traditional life insurance. Yep. He was early on the curve doing AUM fees, because he said, hey, listen, I want to get paid throughout the year, not just one time. I joined him in 2003. So he had been in the industry 13 years at that point. And again, all respect to my dad, he's retired now. He had a really struggling practice. He was barely making any money, and he didn't have good systems in place, and he was in the office all the time. And I was, 2003, I would have been 22. He says, hey, come join my practice. Like, in his mind, if I came and joined his practice, that somehow I would solve all his prospecting issues and I would solve his lack of systems. But I didn't know anything, Delzi. Like, I show up and I'm like, Dad, what do we do today? He says, go out and see the people. What the hell? What does that mean? What do I say to him?
That was your mentor.
Yeah. Well, your natural network. I'm 22. I don't know anybody. Like, my friends are all broke like me.
Oh my gosh.
And so for 5 years, we struggled along, and we were barely making any money. I was barely able to pay my bills. I was racking up credit card debt, trying every stupid marketing thing I could think of. And I talked about this on the Kitces podcast, kitces.com, episode 7. Got to 2008, to the financial crisis, still not making any money. Every day, Delzi, I would go to the office and I would try to figure out how to quit. So we were still within an insurance broker dealer, which is a great space to be in, by the way. We were still there. Every day I would come to office at 8 o'clock and I would spend like the first hour trying to figure out how to quit. But I owed so much money. I had a lease and a house payment, and I just had my second child. So I had 2 young kids, my wife and I, and all I could come up with, Delzi, is I would have to bankrupt out of all my debt. I would lose my house, and I would have to go live with my kids and with my mother-in-law, and then I'd go get a college degree finally. And that was my morning success ritual, Delzi. I'd do that. And I'd be like, I can't do that.
That's what kept you motivated?
That's like the worst morning ritual.
Man, living with your mother-in-law. I guess that is probably
and no disrespect to her. Ever. Yeah, she's like, I can't be that big of a loser. Like, I can't, everybody would know that I'm just a loser. Like, I can't do that. And then I would pick up the phone and make phone calls. And then we went through the financial crisis. As I mentioned earlier, my wholesaler, Michael Appleby, he says, hey, you got to go meet Tom Gow, who Malcolm Gladwell even profiled Tom Gow And I went and I met Tom. I had his coaching program. I had to go take out another credit card so I could afford to go to pay the fee. And I said, whatever Tom's doing, that's what I'm going to do. And if Tom says he's wearing pink underwear and purple suits, that's what I'm just going to do everything. And so I implemented every single thing. I went back to the office. I did every single thing Tom told me to do. And within a year, I had doubled my revenue. I was actually finally making money. And Delzi, the next year I went back to his program again. And I ran into advisors there that had started in his program the same year I did. And I said, guys, this is amazing. I'm actually making money now. I'm excited to see prospects. I said, how's it going for you? And they said, we haven't seen any growth, none at all. And I said, how is that possible? I just did what Tom said. And they say, Delzi, they said, I'm still trying to decide how we're going to implement what Tom's doing. What? And so Delzi, I talked last year to an advisor. He joined the program the same year I did, 2009. So here we are, we're 15 years later. I was in Tom's program for 7 years. This advisor still has a practice that's like a half of mine. And he's 20 years older than I am. Wow. And I didn't want to be disrespectful to him. I said, dude, you got a 20-year head start on me. You got all the same stuff. What the hell's going on, man? It's just, you're not implementing. Yeah. You're trying to figure out, I'm just going to implement. I'm not going to screw around. If somebody's doing something better than me, that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah, which is cool because you just literally just said, I'm not trying to fix his system. I just take his system and implement it. And isn't that what you're doing with the Perfect RIA though? That's all you're doing is you're just modeling your coaching program, you and Micah, and just sharing with sole practitioners, if you will, or small ensembles, whoever. Yeah. They're just modeling your system.
Yeah. So fast forward to 17, Michael Kitces, right? The Michael Kitces announced that he was doing this Advisor Success podcast. And so I emailed him. I said, I'd never met him before, but I read all his content and I said, hey, here's my story. I just did $1 million gross. I am running at a 50 or 60% profit margin and I'll take off 4 or 5 months this year. Like maybe that's an interesting story. He says, absolutely. That's an interesting story. And so he had me on his podcast. Now, like Delzi, the week before.
Hold on. Stop right there. Guys, did you hear what he said? He said, podcast number 7. Isn't Kitces like on like almost 400?
300, 400. Yeah.
So number 7 and number 2 is, I think he's quoted as saying that you're probably the most profitable financial planning practice he's ever seen.
Yeah, by hours worked.
By hours worked.
He needs to get out more. But yeah. So the episode before mine was Ron Carson. And I'm like, I can't be Ron Carson. His firm raises more money a day than we manage in total. Like I can't be the episode after Ron Carson. And I was, and it was the top episode of the year. And then hundreds, now thousands, tens of thousands of advisors reach out. They said, Jarvis, what you have is what I want. I want to deliver massive value to clients. I want to make a lot of money. I want to have time for my family. How are you doing this? I was honored. I was like, yeah, I'll be glad to tell you. And that launched the Perfect RIA podcast. It launched the Perfect RIA coaching program. It launched my book, Delivering Massive Value. It was just all the lessons I wish somebody would have taught me, right, Delzi? When you and I were starting this industry, there was no podcasts. There were no email newsletters. Now there were, and there still are today, a lot of experts who have never had a practice, who have no clue what they're talking about. There's a lot of those. We won't name them today because you're a polite guy, but here we are.
It's funny you said, because Tom Gal was a player coach, I should say. And he did it, right? He was a very successful advisor. He did 15 appointments a day or something?
Oh yeah, he was a maniac. Maniac. Malcolm Gladwell wrote about him in one of his books. Yeah, Tom built and sold multiple multi-million-dollar practices. Now, he was a savant level guy. Like he was certifiably crazy, but he was a master communicator. Master. And that's how I started doing one-page financial plans and my prospect process and how to do tax planning with clients. And that all started with Tom.
So that's where I want to lead to. This is where I want to really get to the heart of this, because my last guest, as you probably know her, I had a 4-part series with her. Yeah. And she ultimately talked about building an ensemble, right? She ended up with $1 billion in assets.
Yeah, Erin's a machine. Absolute brilliant advisor.
She had 18 employees working for her. She met with the clients once, maybe twice, right? That's how much of a team approach that she brought to the table. Yeah. And she said, Delzi, this is a difference between a lifestyle practice and an ensemble. Now, Kitces talked about you being a lifestyle practice and mentioning that and being the highest per hour paid lifestyle practice practitioner. And most of my advisors, to be honest with you, work that way. Kind of a lifestyle versus actually a business, right? Where they have employees, payroll. So can you describe the difference? And then ultimately, what's the exit plan for an ensemble or even a lifestyle practice?
Yeah, and so got to remember, Delzi, all these terms are made up, right? Like it's not Webster's
Thank you
dictionary,
for
like what a
saying that.
lifestyle
I
practice, right?
appreciate it.
So half the time when we say lifestyle practice, what it meant was an advisor in their 60s that's not calling their clients back and they're just riding the trails into the sunset. They're just playing golf every day. My definition of a lifestyle practice was, if I'm going to be in the office, I'm going to work really hard and get stuff done. And then when I'm done doing stuff, I'm going to get out of the office. So I work 6 months and I don't work 6 months. Now it's interspersed. But for me, that was a lifestyle practice. I want to have a highly profitable, that's what Kitces has said, highly profitable, hyper efficient lifestyle practice. And then he said, oh, by the way, at the time, Jarvis was only 35. And so I want my practice to be highly profitable. I want to make money. I don't just want to ride trails. I don't want to hope that clients don't call me back. I should be really intentional about it.
You got to be intentional. You're only working 26 weeks out of the year, which
yeah.
When I tell people that, and by the way, guys, I give out this book. It is fantastic. And for those who are watching, please reach out and I'll get you a copy. Yeah. Because I'm going to buy a boatload more because I know this.
Yeah, I'll send you another box of them, man. I'll send you another box.
So folks, like when I tell my advisors, I'm like, yeah, this guy works 26 weeks out there. Like, why would he do that? And I'm like, because he's efficient. That's why. And we talk about, I listen to a lot of sermons and pastors talk.
Sure.
I don't know if you ever hear them talk about playing religion.
Oh, but yeah, I'm excited.
When you talk about playing religion, you always talk about playing office.
Playing office.
And what do you mean by that? Can you just describe what you see when you have these advisors joining the Perfect RIA?
Yeah.
What are they doing?
Yeah, let's do a quick game here, Delzi. And we'll use easy math, right? Let's say that you have 100 clients, just for easy math. Now, a lot of guys that you and I run into have 600, 700, 900 clients. Let's just say your ideal clients. So you have 100 clients. Let's say you want to meet with them twice a year. So that's 200 meetings. Okay. Let's say you need an hour to assist with that. So let's make that 400 hours, right? 200 hours of meetings, another 200 hours of prep. That's 400 hours. There's what, 2,000 something. Let's call it 2,000 hours in a year. Where'd the other 1,600 hours go? You probably are just sitting around, you're checking email, you're reading the Wall Street Journal, you're screwing around. Like you've got 2,000 hours in the seat, but really only 400 of those are helping clients. And so my thing was like, if I'm not working with clients, I'm not going to be in the office. There's just nothing to do. But if I'm going to be in the office, I'm going to be meeting with clients.
And this is where it leads to this surge, you call it.
That's correct.
Where you're cutting your year up and meeting these folks once or twice or 3 times a year. Mm-hmm. How does that work? Like, how do you set up the calendar to do this?
So let's use that advisor again with 100 clients. They're coming in an average of twice a year. So that's 200 meetings. Most advisors, every week they have a meeting or 2 or maybe 3 meetings, right? That 200 is loosely spread. What that means is your calendar is super inefficient. You're going in and out. You're getting interrupted all the time. When I'm meeting with clients during what we call surge meetings, I'm doing 6 meetings a day, 3 to 4 days a week, depends on how quickly I'm trying to get it done, for about 4 weeks. And I'll do that in the spring. I'll do that in the fall. And then each month I do a mini surge for 2 days, a Wednesday, Thursday, and I'll meet with clients those days. The other days I don't meet with clients. So
you literally set a calendar up for 2 weeks in a row. Every day you're just killing yourself doing
4 weeks in a row.
4 weeks in a row. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And just getting it done.
Yeah, let's get it done. And you mentioned on the religious side, I always like to joke that the first accounting of surge meetings is in Genesis chapter 1 in the Old Testament, where God says he created the earth in 7 days. Why 7 days? Why not 7 years? Why not 700 years? He's just going to get stuff done. So this is not a new concept, right? It's literally like the oldest. In the beginning, God implemented surge meetings. Like I just doing what works.
Following the lead, right?
I'm following the lead, man. It worked for him. It's going to work for me. What makes you a better advisor, right? You're doing it again and again, right? So if I'm going to meet with clients, I'm going to meet with 5 clients that day. And so I'm going to have all my case prep is lined up. I'm going to have the same discussion modified for what their need is. I'm just going to get it done and be really good at it.
So just so that everyone knows, describe your office, like the personnel that you have. Right?
Yeah.
They have no idea do you have an office manager? Do you have a power planner? So
Yeah. So when I was on the Kitces podcast in 2017, it was myself and it was Colleen, who's my office manager / personal assistant / did everything. And by the way, I recommend hire an assistant as soon as you possibly can, even a part-time virtual assistant. Call my friends at Belay. Get somebody in place who can answer the phone and can do some of those tasks. I know you think you can't afford it. You can, just do it. So when I got to Kitces, episode 7, we were doing about $1 million a year. It was myself and it was Colleen, who was my office manager. It was just the 2 of us, right? Today, we're doing about $2 million a year in revenue, and it's myself. Colleen's still with me. I have a paraplanner, Alan, and I have another lead advisor, Reese. And the reason for that is I'm transitioning from a high cash flow lifestyle practice to building enterprise value, which will really increase the value of my practice.
So ultimately what? Exit or?
Yeah, someday we all exit our practices eventually, right? Like every practice will be exited. Maybe it's on your terms at peak valuation, or maybe it's because you got hit by a bus, or maybe it's because the SEC or the state insurance regulator, whatever, came and shut you down. But I want to make sure that I'm positioned for maximum value so that when I'm ready to exit someday, I'm in the best spot to do that.
So let me ask you, because Erin on the 4 sessions, she talked about like getting maximum dollar. You have to have a team. If you got hit by the bus tomorrow, there's no hiccup. The clients are still coming in. They're meeting with the team. How do you set that up? Are you thinking the same way as Erin?
No, actually, because I don't enjoy running teams. So Erin is a brilliant individual, and she does a great job running team. An 18-person team, like, man, I'm gonna take the early exit on that one, right? I just want to have as few people as I possibly can that are really self-managing, and so I don't plan to add any more team members. I don't want to really grow any bigger unless I become part of somebody else's enterprise. That's like managing people is not my passion, which is why it was when I hired Colleen in 2012 or 13 or whatever, I said, hey, listen, you're the only person I'm going to hire. And if I have to hire a second person, it's going to be to replace you. Like, I don't want a big team. I don't want a big team.
Then you got Reese, all right, Reese?
Reese, yeah. I got Reese, who joined our team a bit ago. He's taken over as lead advisor on a ton of clients, the majority of clients at this point, because again, I want time to run the Perfect RIA, time to be on your show here, time to write my book, time to work on my next book, whatever that case may be.
Okay. So you do have a team, but smaller.
Lean and
still
mean.
doing as efficient. I guess the net numbers, if you really do the math, it might be equal with Erin versus you. And I hate to compare, but
yeah, I haven't seen Erin's number. She was running a phenomenal practice. I'm also always just looking for where are my skill sets? Like, where am I really good and where am I not so good? So I'm really good meeting with prospects, a lot of practice. I'm not so good having weekly team meetings. It's not my favorite thing to do. And so I just focus on my strengths, and wherever I have weakness, I bring somebody else in or something else in.
One of the interesting you also do with your practice, because you do the surge, is that you don't just drop everything while you're in the office. If someone calls in and has a question, you're not just dropping everything and answering the phone. Like, you guys actually have a scheduling day just for callbacks, right? Which I thought was so much different than everyone.
Have to have. Yeah, and I talk about this in my book. Let's run through the standard scenario, right? So Delzi, let's say you're one of my best clients, and you call my office, and Colleen answers, oh, thank you for calling Jarvis Financial. It's Colleen. How can I help you? You say, hey, it's Delzi. I need to talk to Jarvis. What is every other office going to say? Let me see if he's available. But what does that mean? That means, Delzi, let me see if you're important enough to talk to him, because she knows if I'm available. If I'm on vacation, she's not going to say, let me see if he's available. So she's going to ring me. Hey, Delzi, your top client's on the phone. He wants to talk to you. Oh, crap. Yeah, Delzi's my top client. Go ahead and put him through. And so whatever I was in the middle of is now not getting done. So that was interrupted, productivity killer. And I'm scrambling to open up your file, trying to think, why the hell would Delzi be calling? Right. And then what's going to happen 9 times out of 10, Delzi, is you're going to say, hey, Jarvis, I need $10,000 for a trip we're taking. Oh, Colleen could have handled that. So that's how the average advisor works. It's terribly inefficient, and it's a really bad client experience. So what happens instead? You call my office. You say, hey, Colleen, is Jarvis available? Colleen says, oh, Delzi, Jarvis, he's going to be so excited to know that you're calling. He's actually helping another client right now. Is there something that I can help you with? Now, let's play this one through, Delzi. You're probably going to say, no, actually, I really need to talk to Matt. Perfect. If this is an emergency, Delzi, he can call you back this afternoon. Otherwise, would it be okay if he called you Thursday at 2 o'clock? You're going to say 9 times out of 10, yeah, Thursday at 2 o'clock is fine. Perfect. So that he can be prepared for the call, Delzi, what would you like to chat with him about? That's when you say, hey, I need that 10 grand. Oh, Delzi, great news. I can actually take care of that for you. Would you still like to talk to Matt on Thursday? Or you say, hey, my CPA is mad as hell about this Roth conversion or this annuity you surrendered. I really need to talk to you. Perfect. I'll make sure he's ready for it. So then Thursday at 2 o'clock comes, I call you right at the money, right at 2 o'clock, not 2:01. And I've already got your file open. I've got your tax return. I've got what we did. I got our last notes. I got our meeting notes. I'm on my A game. It transforms the whole world.
But it's more efficiency, right? And it's all
way more efficient. It's better client experience.
Yeah. I mean, that's...
And that's one thing, by the way, like I talk about that in my book. That's one of, and that's not a hard thing to implement. Right? Like here you and I are like, I'm not that smart of a guy. I'm not like a super good looking guy. I have a terrible haircut. I just want to do things like the most efficient way I can. A mentor of mine, one of my insurance agency general managers, this guy, Ray Adams, he would say, don't try to scare him with boo if you can get him with boo. Like he was just this old school guy. Don't make it hard. Don't give them a Morningstar illustration. Tell them that if they die, their family's going to be short $1 million and you need to fill in that hole. Buy an insurance policy.
It's plain and simple.
Yeah.
This is where I think a lot of advisors struggle is, let's back up.
Yeah, please.
A lot of my advisors can't imagine charging for a planning fee.
Sure. Yeah.
Especially if they're getting AUM, right? Advisory fees and things like that. What that tells me, I think, is that advisors struggle to deliver massive value, right?
Yeah.
Can you walk us through why you have no problem doing advisory and charging a planning fee because of your massive value that you deliver? What do you show advisors in the Perfect RIA? Like, how do you deliver massive value and do it, 4 times a year, I believe, right?
Yeah, we do value adds 4 times a year. And then I meet with clients in the spring and the fall. Yeah.
So why can't my advisors do that?
Yeah. One quick note. We're going to talk about this in depth in September when Micah and I are together. So Micah charges an AUM fee and a planning fee on top of that. I right now still only charge an AUM fee because I have my own head trash. Like I'm not like on the top of Mount Olympus. I have my own head trash about it. We're charging 1.5%. So we have a solid planning fee, or excuse me, AUM fee. These value adds.
By the way, my advisors, if you're wealthy enough, they'll discount it.
Never
to
discount
like 75.5.
Here's the deal, Matt Delzi. Any advisor, like you bring me any advisor that's doing $250,000 to $1 million, I get their practice doubled in 24 months. Like anything. Now, if you're below $250,000 of GDC, you just got to grind it out. But if you've passed $250,000, you're doing $1.5 million, we can get you doubled in 24, 36 months. And the way to do that is, to your point, we got to go deliver massive value to your clients that haven't been hearing from you, clients that you've really probably not been doing much, demonstrate value, and then go right size your fees. And so, yeah, let's give a quick example to that. However many clients you have, like when was the last time you looked at their beneficiary list with them? I'm gonna guess never. Probably when you filled out the application, right? But if I give you a call, Delzi, and I say, hey, Delzi, you know what? I was looking at whatever, your IRA, your annuity, your life insurance, and you got your 4 kids listed, and here they are, here's their names. And Delzi, if we add this all up, if something happens to you, they're each gonna get a check for $575,000. Just wanted to make sure that, Delzi, that was in line with your goals. Now, you might say, actually, that is, my kids are sharp kids. They'll take that money. There'll be no problem. Or you might say, wait a second, a check for $575,000. My kid Joe over here, he's an idiot. He's going to blow that money. We can't have that set up. Yep. Cool, Delzi, I'm glad I called. Let's make some adjustments. Let's figure out how to get this changed. Either way, Delzi, this is the first time anyone's called you and translated into English. No one knows percentages. You and I do. No one else does. And I say, hey, Delzi, it's $575,000 a kid. Is that okay with you? Oh, I never thought about it that way.
Yeah,
it doesn't have to be a heavy lift. This isn't doing some 50-year tax projection. This is just translating for clients in plain English. Here's what's going on.
It's amazing. I love the little things, like just listening to your podcast the other day.
Yeah.
Cutting my lawn is when I always listen to you and
awesome.
Mike, or you and your brother. Like even just prospecting and networking with like CPAs, the way you say, look, don't ever offer taking them to lunch, right?
No, not unless you're already friends or something.
Yeah. So what are you paying for their time? Whatever their hourly fee is, and saying, look, I want to sit down. I'll pay whatever your service fee is. I'll pay it. You developed those relationships, I'm assuming, because your brother's one of the top CPAs in the country. So
yeah, no, he's great.
Yeah. How do you deliver that? How do you network with CPAs? Because a lot of my advisors, I've done multiple advisors around asking them the same thing. What's your approach? What's your approach? What's your approach?
Yes, of my practice, about 1/3 of my clients came from centers of influence, attorneys, CPAs, business bankers, et cetera. About 1/3 from my personal networking, and about 1/3 from referrals. And that's been pretty consistent over the years. So centers of influence, right? Everybody knows that you're supposed to talk to centers of influence, right? Everyone's told that's the golden goose, that all you do is give them a call and they'll send you business. And then what is most of our experience? We call them, they tell us to pound sand, we send them business, they never send us business, right? That's just near universal. And then the only guys that are exceptions to that, you find out later that it's their brother that's the CPA. Now, my brother is a CPA. However, he's never sent me a single client ever. So I don't want you to think like this is some magic thing from him. But all my clients are asking for, what are they? They're asking for an accountant to do their taxes. They're asking for an attorney to do their estate planning. So I call up these centers of influence and I say, Delzi, let's say you're a CPA. I say, hey, Delzi, it's Matthew Jarvis. I'm a financial planner here in town. Hey, a lot of my clients are asking for an introduction to a CPA who can do their taxes. And Delzi, I'll be honest, I can't promise like any of them are going to hire you. Yeah. So I want to be respectful of your time. Whatever your hourly rate is, I'd be glad to pay it. I have a handful of questions so I can learn how you practice so that I can make sure I can introduce the right clients to you. Is that okay with you? And I'm the only person in their entire career who's offered to pay for their time. Everyone else they've had to pry the money out of.
Which is absolutely amazing. Like, it's brilliant. I would have never thought of doing that.
I got to be honest. I never thought of doing it either until my agency manager, back when I was with an insurance BD, I said, Ray, how are you making all this money? He says, I just see the people. Come on, Ray, that doesn't help me any. He's, listen, I'll tell you, you're not going to do it because nobody does it. And he told me that it's what he did. Okay, if it works for Ray, this is my hack in life, Delzi. If I can find someone else that it works for, then even if it only works half as good for me, I'm going to give it a go. That's why Tom Gow was so inspiring. Tom Gow is running a multi-million-dollar practice. If I'm half as good as Tom, I'm going to crush it. So Ray did this approach. So I do it with my accountants, with attorneys, with business bankers, a couple other centers of influence. It works incredibly well. I talk about it in my book. We talk about it in the coaching program all the time. But because here's the other thing, like, here I am on the show, Delzi, and you're saying nice things about me, and I have this great practice, and Michael Kitces has had me on his show a couple of times, and I have my book. Dude, at the end of the day, like, I'm still terrified of rejection. Like, at the end of the day, I still remember me that for 5 years got up every day thinking, how do I quit this job? And I couldn't figure it out. And so I only want to play games that I can win. My head trash is just as bad as everyone else. So when I call a CPA, even today, I think, this guy's probably going to hang up on me. This guy's probably going to say, hey, you're an idiot. Why are you calling me? Financial advisors aren't real professionals. I hope your family dies. Like, that's what's going in my head when I'm going to pick up that phone. Delzi, because you have the same thoughts. We all have the same thoughts. Like, we don't talk about it. We all have the same thing. When you're getting ready to call an advisor, tell me if I'm wrong here, Delzi, there's still this little voice somewhere in your head that's, this guy is just going to ream me out, and I probably should quit and get a real job. There's somewhere in your head that voice still goes on. Now, you're a pro, and you still make those calls. But with the CPAs, I thought, if I call an offer to pay for this guy's time, he's not going to say no to that. And some still do, but most don't. And then I show up at their office, check in hand, whatever your rate was, $475, Delzi CPA. I sat on the desk. I say, boy, Delzi, I'm really excited to chat with you today. I've got a list of questions. I sent them to you in advance. I just want to run through those. Any questions you have for me before you get started? And their first question is like, why the hell are you paying for my time? Delzi, you're a professional. I'm a professional. I'm not going to come in here and blow smoke and say, I'm going to send you 100 clients.
Interesting.
I want to respect your time. Now I'm in a league unlike any other advisor that's ever talked to them. They could get calls from 1,000 advisors, and they're going to remember me over everyone else.
That's pretty cool. You're meeting with your clients 2 to 4 times a year or whatever.
Twice a year. Right? Yeah, twice a year. Yeah.
Twice a year. And you talk about in your book, like the 1-page financial plan. These are all head things that advisors like feel like, oh my gosh, if I don't deliver this 80-page financial plan, I don't feel like I'm delivering value.
Yep.
And you're delivering a 1-page plan. I love the withdrawal rate plan.
The guardrails.
You draw and the guardrails. It's so cool. Like, how do you do the financial plan? Are you actually using a software but never giving it to them? Or are you just saying, I'm just doing the math on a yellow pad and I'm just doing the numbers in my head? Like, what are you delivering?
Yeah, I don't use any financial planning software at all. And it's funny because people always ask, and then their immediate reaction is, oh, so you're not actually doing financial planning. Hey, hang on a second. Like, when was that the 11th commandment? Did I not hear like Moses flipped over the tablets and thou shalt use Money Guide Pro, or thou art not a real advisor? That's not a thing. That's not a thing. Like, this complexity that we've added, this false complexity. Let's do an 80-page plan. Let me tell you, Delzi, the biggest client I ever worked with, dude had $70 million, got referred to me almost by accident. I sit down with him in person. He comes to my office. We're chatting through the process. He says, Jarvis, let me stop you right here. How big is your biggest client? And I said, our clients have varying levels of net worth. He says, no, what's the dollar amount? Net worth of your highest client? I said, $14 million. He says, I'm in the wrong place. He says, I just exited my company. I have 70 million in my brokerage account from the proceeds of this business. I must be in the wrong place. And I say to him, I got to be honest, you probably are in the wrong place. I don't know anything about a $70 million client, but you're already here. So let me go through my process. I'll send you my 1-page financial plan. You can use it to evaluate any other firm that you're talking to. He begrudgingly said yes, because he's, I'm already here. Sure. So I do have a 1-page financial plan, Delzi. I send it to him, and I think I'm never going to hear from this guy again. Right. Sure enough, a few weeks later, Delzi, he calls me. He says, I met with all of the top RIA firms in Seattle, where I'm located, multi-billion-dollar shops. They had leather-bound financial plans. They had genealogists on staff. Who knows what the hell? He says, you were the only person that I could figure out what the hell you were going to do for me. And he hired me. And we worked together for several years. And I did finally find a family office to refer him to because we got past the complexity that I could handle. But yeah, here's this guy, $70 million. I went against the top firms in the Seattle area, multi-billion-dollar shops. And he says, hey, you're the only person I could figure out what the hell you're talking about.
Wow.
Clients don't understand this stuff. Like advisors don't understand this stuff. Here's the test, Delzi. Whatever you're going to give to a client, before you give it to them, take out a highlighter and highlight any lines that are personalized, actionable advice. So let me give you an example of that. Convert $7,000 to a Roth IRA. That's personalized, actionable advice.
Right.
14 pages of Monte Carlo illustration. That's not. And I would bet that you don't have a full page worth of personalized, actionable advice in an 80-page financial plan. I'll bet any dollar amount you want on that one. And so it's just noise. Wow. So I think, what am I paying for? If I want noise, I'll just go to Google. Google, give me all the noise in the world. AI will double the noise for me. I want action items.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So you're doing the tax returns, or I don't know if you're doing the actual taxes, but you're actually looking them, reviewing them, all that. And the little picture of the guardrails and explaining to the clients.
Yeah, guardrails are great.
Mr. and Mrs. Jones, this is your withdrawal rate. If you go above here, the account goes here. I just love how simple you keep it. It's all pictures, more or less, right?
Yeah, as much as I can. Again, where did I learn that from? The insurance guys, right? The insurance guys would always draw the cash value bucket of whole life insurance or universal life insurance, because that's a complicated subject. Now, again, for listeners, you might do a ton of insurance business. You might do none. I don't really care, but who is illustrating really complex topics, right? If I go I got to take my Jeep into the dealership because it's got this issue. I do not want a 100-page plan report from the dealership. I want them to say the problem was X and the solution is Y, and it's X $100 to take care of it, and let's call it a day. That's all I want.
Yeah. No.
When I get on a plane to fly somewhere, I don't want to see the flight log. I want the pilot to say, "Wow, welcome. This is a flight to Las Vegas." Okay, cool. I'm on the right plane.
Was this $70 million client, was that a prelude to overcoming, like, how to get the client to yes, that who just said no? Is that what you do? Compare me to what else you're going to go and visit?
Yeah.
So how do you overcome
prospecting's
that?
A huge thing. Yeah, prospecting is a huge thing. So all advisors look and sound exactly the same to consumers. Now, I know that you feel like you're a special and unique snowflake, and I know that your mom said you were really special, and I know you feel really special. To consumers, we're not. We all look and sound, and they don't care about your designations. They don't care about your fee model. They don't care what firm you're with. They don't care that your fee-only advice, double, twice return. They don't care about any of that. They want to know how you're going to help in their situation, right? And they want to take away pressure, right? So when a prospect sits down in my office, or in a Zoom meeting, Delzi, the first thing I say is, hey, Delzi, I'm so glad that you're coming in here today. As we discussed, I'm going to walk you through a process to make an educated and informed decision about working with my practice. Great news, Delzi, you can use this same process to evaluate any other firm you're considering. But before we get started, I need to note two very important things. First, I'd like you to look behind you. You will notice that there is not a lock on my office door. And they get really confused and they look. Sure enough, there's no lock. And I smile and I say, Delzi, that's because this is not a timeshare presentation. There is nothing to buy here. There are no forms to sign. And if at any time you feel like I'm giving you any kind of pressure at all, you just get up and leave. Now, Delzi, if you want to be polite to me, tell me that you need to go use the men's room and just don't come back. And then I won't feel quite so bad. I'll just think you got lost on the way. And we laugh, right? It's a stupid joke. I tell it every single time, right? And then I say, Delzi, but this is a business. And the lights don't stay on for free. So at the end of this session, at the very end, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you if you'd like me to create a one-page financial plan for you. And if you say yes, then I will. And then I'm going to give you that one-page financial plan. I'm going to walk through exactly what happens if we work together. And then I'm going to invite you to go home and sleep on it. And if you sleep on it and you say, yeah, I'd really like to work with Jarvis and his team, then we'll go from there. Delzi, does that sound okay to you? What does every single person say? Yeah, that sounds amazing to me. I'm going to learn what you do, and I'm not going to get the hard sale, which is our big fear. And I can use this to compare anybody else I'm shopping. Yeah, let's do this thing.
Interesting. You have some expert or like testimonials that from some of your advisors who attended the Perfect RIA.
Yeah.
They said your prospecting onboarding process is bar none the best.
It's good. It's really good.
What makes it so good? Because I think a lot of advisors think they have a great process. Is it the same every time when you sit down with a client, they know exactly what the process is going to be?
It's easy to tell if you have a great process. People say yes. That's how we know. If people aren't saying yes, we have a broken process. And then we need to figure out, why are they saying no? What are they saying no? And then why are they really saying no? and then work backwards. Like an advisor I coached, phenomenal advisor in Connecticut, great advisor. He was having this problem. He says, Jarvis, I go through your process. I get to the very end. They say, you know what? I'm going to do this myself. I'm just going to go ahead and do this myself. Why are they doing that? Cool. For whatever reason, he was attracting a lot of DIYers and they were just trying to get free information out of him. So a solution is to charge for that process. Another solution is to screen them out. So this advisor I think he's 4x'd his income since I started working with him. Yeah, 4x'd his income. Brian's his name. We worked through his process. And so we said, great news, Brian, DIYers cannot resist telling you they're DIYers. They have too much ego. So he added this one line at the beginning of his process. He says, hey, Delzi, this process is really designed for someone who's serious about hiring a financial advisor. If we get to this end of this process and we've shown you how we can deliver massive value to your situation, would you seriously consider hiring us? DIYers can't say yes to that. They have no, actually, I'm going to do it myself no matter what. Okay, great news. This process isn't for you. There's other advisors out here who are glad to do this on an hourly basis or whatever. I don't know. We added that one line. He weeded those people out. His close rate went through the roof.
Wow. So little things like that. That's what the Perfect RIA brings to the table.
Yeah.
We're coming down to the end of it. I think you've covered. Is there anything I haven't covered? Oh, raising fees. Like, how do you get to that discussion? Before we were told, you're like, you got to ask about raising fees.
You got to ask about raising fees.
A lot of my advisors will not do that. Like, how do you do that?
Yeah. So there's a couple pieces here. One, we can get into the science of this cognitive biases. We get an anchoring bias, so whatever, let's say, Delzi, you've been my client for 15 years. And for whatever reason, when you became a client, we charged you 70 bips, right? 0.7. Or let's say we didn't charge you at all. Let's say we were just doing, like, we got an old, FIA or whatever. But that's not, again, I joke, that's not the 11th commandment. Everybody has changed their prices. Every time I go to Starbucks, the prices are different. And then they don't have a discussion about it. They don't have a pros and cons. They just tell me, like, here it is. Your ice cream tea is this price now.
Right.
So we have a process. We demonstrate value to you. So we do a couple of value adds. We show that you're really valuable. And then we go back and we say, Delzi, great news. Your fee was X and it's now Y. And here's where you're going to sign. It's that simple, but it's incredibly difficult because it's all in your head. So one of my first big fee increases, this is something Mike and I do with all the advisors we coach. We call it extreme accountability. And extreme accountability is that there's things that you and I are afraid to do. We know we need to do them. We're afraid to do them. And we have great stories. This person's been a client for 20 years. They're not a lot of work, fee compression. I can't charge them more. We have whatever the story is. And we're afraid that if I raise my fee, what's the fear? My fear is that they're going to fire me. They're going to call all my clients who are also going to fire me. My family is going to find out. My wife's going to leave me. My kids are going to abandon me. And by 3 p.m. this afternoon, Eastern time, I'm going to be holding a sign, Will Financial Plan for Food. Right. And every time, by the way, Delzi, I tell that, everyone's nodding because we all have that same fear. We're all just terrified. So extreme accountability says, let's create a stick that's so painful that it overcomes this fear that I have. So the first big fee increase I did, Micah and I, this was many years ago, I wrote a letter to my 10 top clients. And the letter said, dear Mr. and Mrs. Top Client, I have discovered that I am not the financial planner that you need me to be. But great news, I found a much better advisor, Micah Shalansky, one of the best in the industry. I am transferring your accounts to him, and I've transferred my own accounts to Micah as well. I wish you all the best. Thank you so much, Matthew Jarvis. I wrote 10 of these. I gave them to Micah, and I said, listen, if I don't raise my fees by December 31st of the year this was, you need to mail those 10 letters. And wow. Micah, being a real friend, said, you bet I'm going to mail these things. And so, Delzi, I got down to the wire and I'm like, I can't raise these fees. My whole world's going to blow up. Then I'm thinking, if I don't raise these fees, I'm going to lose these 10 clients. Whatever happens cannot be worse than that. And I raised my fees. I've never seen an advisor lose more than 2 to 5 clients when raising fees. I just never seen it. I've seen a lot of fee increases. I've never seen more than 2 to 5 clients leave. They're usually clients that were PITA anyway, that you need to get rid of anyway. Yeah. And so I raised those fees. I added $500,000 of revenue to the bottom line. Last year, Delzi did it with an advisor. He added $2.5 million of revenue to the bottom line by adjusting his fees relative to the value he provided. And he was terrified too.
But I want to tie this to, you said an anchor, like you provided some sort of value just before that.
Yeah. If you haven't called the client in 2 years and you're going to call them and raise their fees, I don't think that's going to go over super well. Like, you could do
exactly. I think that's one of the reasons why a lot of advisors might not do is, one, they might not have really kept consistent contact, right?
Today's new day.
They aren't delivering massive value in the eyes of you, or thinking about like tax planning or beneficiary reviews, things like that. So maybe it's a belief set because they don't deserve it.
Yeah, which it's all made up. It's all made up. I'm going to choose the version of made up that works the best for me. What helps too is We do it with advisors a client profitability list where we take all your clients, we remove the name, we put their assets down and how much revenue they're making for the firm. First thing they'll discover is that most of your clients aren't paying you anything at all. Especially if you have an old BD insurance book, you have all these old clients that haven't paid you a dime. They're probably the ones calling you the most often. So we need to do a profitability analysis.
Okay.
Then we need to start raising fees. We say, listen, there's a minimum threshold. If you want to be a client of mine, you have to pay at least $3,000 a year. Or if we annualize out the commission, it's got to come to $3,000 a year, whatever your number is. Mine's 10. I won't work with anybody who's paying less than 10 a year. And so if they're below that, we either need to raise their fee or graduate them to another advisor. Now, again, Delzi, I'm going through this at like 100 miles an hour. There's a whole process we have to follow to make sure that you actually do this and that you set yourself up for success.
But it's amazing, like the book, because I read it. It was several months ago when I read it, but like everything's coming back to me as you're reminding me, like, you have a process of firing people. You have the letter. You have what exactly to say, answering the phones. You have the scripts. Like everything is literally done for anyone to just model and just replicate and just do what you're doing and taking 26 months or 26 weeks off every year. Like I just had an advisor just finish your book this weekend, believe it or not. I gave it to him a couple of weeks ago. He took it down the shore. I want to read this over the weekend. He's that guy. He's pretty sharp. He knows what he's doing. He goes, I might have to join his coaching.
A lot of trial and error. Yeah. So here's the thing for everybody listening. If we took a group of 100 advisors, 20 of them could listen to my podcast, read the book. That's all they need. And they will go to the moon. Delzi, you've met with so many advisors, point them in the right direction. They'll go through the moon. Of that, so that leaves 80 advisors. Of those 80, 20 of them, no matter what you do, they're never going to make it. They really shouldn't be in the industry. They're going to wash out. You might as well wash out sooner than later. Yep. So that leaves us with 60. Those 60, if someone can show them a paint by number, give them a little bit of coaching, they can get to the moon as well. And that's why we created the Perfect RIA, right? Mike and I said, hey, listen, the podcast is one thing, the book is one thing, but 60 of 100 advisors, they need more coaching, right? Just like I needed more coaching. If it wasn't for the Tom Gow coaching program, I would have never made it. And so that's why we created the Perfect RIA coaching program is for advisors who say, hey, I'm hearing what you're saying, Jarvis and Delzi, and it's really great, but if I'm going to be honest, tomorrow, I'm not going to do it. And that's why we created the program.
See that, folks, you got to, the value you bring between the book, the symposium you and your brother are hosting out in Tempe, like given, what do they get for that? Like it's out, I think it's September 25th through the 27th, Tempe, Arizona, right? It's great excuse to go to Arizona.
It's a great time. Yeah.
Great time.
So I'm just looking at my calendar off to the side. Yeah. So on the 24th and 25th, Micah and I are doing a workshop on how to deliver massive value, how to do value adds and how to raise your fees. And then the 25th to the 27th, Stephen and I are doing the Retirement Tax Services Tax Summit. So the first half is, if you have ever considered raising your fees or delivering more value, come to that and we'll get your fees raised a lot. And your client's excited for it, by the way. This is like a begrudging, damn it, I like Delzi, I'll still pay this. No. Clients are like, hey, listen, this is still a screaming deal. I can't believe I get so much for so little. And then the second half of the week is, how do I do tax planning in my practice? Not tax prep. Don't do tax prep. That's a terrible business model. How do I differentiate myself from Vanguard, from Fisher Investments, from whomever, by asking the clients, hey, send me a copy of your tax return so that we can make sure that you're doing everything you can to minimize your lifetime tax bill.
So that brings me to, oh God, it sounds like a lot of work. Or do I have to be an expert in taxes? What do you tell advisors if they aren't an expert in taxes and they don't look at a lot of 1040? How do you make them an expert? Or how do you engage them, advisors, to learn and to present tax prep, if you will?
Yeah. An advisor friend of mine, a fellow Benjamin Brandt, phenomenal advisor. He's in Bismarck, in North Dakota or South Dakota, wherever it is. It's in the Dakotas, right? He always says, hey, listen, I don't want to be a tax expert. I want to know tax experts. And so by his own admission, now Ben's a brilliant guy. He's very humble. By his own admission, he's saying, hey, I'm not super tech savvy. He's not tech savvy as me or as Micah, but he knows, he's learned enough from Stephen. How do I talk taxes to clients and then have someone else tell me what it is we need to do here? And it's not super complicated stuff. Hey, should we be doing a Roth conversion? How much taxes should we have withheld when we're taking a distribution, right? These kinds of things make a big difference. It's not like, how do I set up an intentionally defective grantor trust based in Puerto Rico? We're not talking about that kind of stuff. That's past all of us. Okay. We're talking about understanding basic level taxes.
So in your podcast with your brother in May that I just listened to again this weekend, you guys talked about the Tax Cuts Jobs Act.
Yeah.
And how important it is, if you want to go out and talk to CPAs and really start to develop, take like things that are either going away or about to be implemented or recent changes and use it to your advantage. So with TCGA may be going away. What should these advisors, how would you be taking advantage of this if you're trying to set up some relationships? Just using that as a subject?
Yeah. So right now, when I'm talking to centers of influence, which we're doing a big push on right now, we have a guide that Steven created on how to make your estimated tax payments online, which seems like a non-issue, but almost everyone's sending checks in still for their estimated payments, which is a pain in the butt. It's a bad plan. And they're doing their checks wrong, by the way. And so we created this guide on how to make your estimated payments online and several tricks and techniques to reduce the error rate, because the IRS makes mistakes on this all the time. And so I'm reaching out to all of our centers of influence saying, hey, Delzi, do you have any clients that are making estimated payments? They said, yeah, what kind of a stupid question is that? Of course I do. I said, Delzi, I'm going to drop by your office this guide for clients on how to make estimated tax payments online. Our clients love it. Let me know if you like it, and then we'll get you as many copies as you'd like for your clients. And they say they can't even comprehend it. What do you mean a guide to make online estimated payments? Delzi, I know it sounds strange. I'm just telling you my clients love it. Let me drop by your office and let me know what you think.
That's awesome.
Right? I'm not an expert. I'm just giving them a resource.
Yeah.
I'm giving them a resource, which again, no one else has done.
It's funny. You guys talked about the 12-month, the calendar, like the touch program with the CPAs, like being engaged with them all year long. Obviously, you're not talking to them from January to April, but you guys give your advisors like this campaign throughout the year of how to stay in front of these CPAs or centers of influences, if you will.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Because I just want to give you all the details, right? I don't want you to have to guess, because it took me a long time to figure this out, like a ton of pain and suffering to figure this stuff out. I don't want you to make that same mistake.
So you just give them a shortcut.
Just do what I did. And then once it works for you, once you're doing it as good as I am, then change it. Because you might listen to this stuff and you might say, I would never say it that way. Like maybe that works on the West Coast, here on the East Coast, or I was in the UK last year doing it for a big group of advisors. Great. You got to adapt that a little bit to you, but don't reinvent the wheel. An advisor friend of mine, Michael Henley, brilliant advisor. He's been on the Kitces podcast. Yeah. He's quoted in my book. He always says, hey, I would rather copy genius than reinvent mediocrity. And he's just an endless student of the game. Yeah. He's an endless student, and his income reflects it, because he's just an endless student of the game.
Yeah, I've heard him on, I think I've listened to his Kitces podcast. So I'm trying to think anything else. I know you're big on your show to ask 3 actionable items from your guest. What, other than go get the damn book?
Yeah, go get the book, subscribe to the podcast, give it 5 stars.
Oh gosh, you got to listen to the podcast. It is so good. It's short. It's what, not even 30 minutes? 30
minutes, yeah, just under 30 minutes.
Between you and your brother, and obviously you and Micah.
Yeah.
Obviously go into the tax planning summit if they can. What are 3 actionable items that advisors can do right now to increase efficiency, or just basically generate more revenue, if you will, or generate more clients? What would you... Or anything else? You might have something else.
No, that's good. So action item number 1, you've got to have a professional development budget. So I talked about, I had to go take out a new credit card, so I'd have enough money to pay for Tom Gauss' program. Invest in professional development. I recommend that it be somewhere around 10% of your net income. That's a big nut to crack. But if you do that, like I still do that, Delzi, I spend $100,000 to $200,000 a year in professional development. Like it's a big number. And I'd like to think I'm pretty good at what I do at this point, but it's still a big number. Last week or a couple weeks ago, I was at a private retreat with Jocko, the Navy SEAL guy.
Yeah.
And I think Mike and I paid $25,000 a piece to be there. And it was just like, how do I next level this? So if you say, hey, listen, Jarvis, I love your stuff. Let's hire the Perfect RIA. Let's join that coach program. Awesome. If you heard Aaron's stuff, join Aaron's program. If you like my friend Libby Gryweek, join her stuff. My buddy Sten Morgan. Learn from people that have what you want to have, not who are speculating, but who have what you want to have. Go ahead.
So I love it. So that's 1, have a budget.
Yep. Yeah. Actually, number 2, do a client profitability list. Get all your clients on a spreadsheet from whatever report you need. Take their names off and see who's actually paying you and how much they're paying you. And then do the math. You say, hey, listen, if I moved everybody's fee to 1%, and if half of my clients left, would I still be making more money than I am right now with half as many clients? And the answer is yes, but you've got to do that report. Names removed. Names have to be removed. If you see the names, you'll welch on the whole thing. Delzi, I love that guy. I can't graduate Delzi. Names removed. This is a business, not a charity.
Well, what about COIs? Because that's what they're going to say. This client really doesn't have much, but you got to add that, right?
You get 5 exceptions per 100 clients. So if you have 200 clients, you can have 10 exceptions. I don't need to hear the story, but you don't get 11. So if you say, hey, I want to keep my mom as a client, cool. Now you have 9 exceptions. This guy sends me lots of referrals. I doubt that. I'd really want to see evidence of that. But okay, sure. Now you have 8 exceptions.
Head trash again, right?
It's all head trash. It's all
All
head
right,
trash.
5 exceptions per 100. Okay.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
any third?
Yeah, extreme accountability. All of the biggest changes in my practice. And I've done extreme accountability with so many advisors. There's things that we all know we need to do. There was an advisor I worked with, and I said, dude, what's going on? What do you need to work on? He says, I got to be honest. I feel really bad. I bring my laptop home, and halfway through dinner, I open up my laptop and I start working. And my kids are there, my wife is there, and I'm on my laptop working. I said, yeah, dude, that's actually a big problem. That cannot go on. There's no good work that's going on. You're dropping your responsibility as a father, as a husband. He says, I know, I feel terrible about it, but every single night I tell myself I'm not going to do it. And then I do it. It's an addiction, right? And so I said, great news. Here's your extreme accountability. Any day that your laptop comes into your house, it's so that your 4-year-old kid can take it apart and see what's inside of a laptop. He says, Jarvis, I can't do that. That's insane. I said, it's no more insane than you spending your evenings on your laptop instead of with your family. So if that laptop comes in the door of your house for any reason, it's so your 4-year-old kid can see what's on the inside of a laptop. Give him the hammer, let him smash away. And that was his extreme accountability.
It's funny you say that because I just listened to I believe it was Jamie's summary from this past Friday.
Oh, probably Amber's summary. Yeah, Jamie does our Thursday episodes.
I'm sorry, I think it was Amber.
Yep.
I'm getting them mixed up.
No, you're good, man. They're both rock stars.
But she was talking about like the team or going away for a conference and always having a buffer day.
Yep.
So if it's 2-day conference, stay there a third day and just go over what you learned instead of coming home and trying to be present with your family, but you're trying to like at the same time trying to remember everything. So I thought that was brilliant. Like just stay an extra day. Plan that it was 3 days instead of 2, but get all that stuff written down, what you're going to do, what your takeaways are, so that when you get home, you're totally present with your family. It's almost like the same here. She was talking about extreme accountability. By the way, those little Friday summary are there. And then the show's follow up are just fantastic.
Yeah. Amber's spectacular. She does really a great job.
Oh
so
my gosh.
Yeah. So it speaks to having great people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she works with Micah, right?
No, Amber works for the Perfect RIA. She produces the podcast and got us scheduled.
Yes,
and
who's the one who works for Micah?
Don't say she works for Micah. So Jamie is Micah's sister, Jamie Solansky.
Yeah, that's right. Yes.
And she is a rock star of rock stars in her own right, though we love to tease. Everyone asks if she's Micah's assistant or something like that. But no, Jamie, and come meet her at the Perfect RIA event at the end of September. Jamie will blow your mind. She's real sharp. So surround yourself. That old 5-person rule, right? You're the average of the 5 people you spend time with. And if you're spending time with bums, upgrade that, and you got to upgrade it.
Yeah. So to make sure we're clear, it's the Perfect RIA podcast, right?
Yep. Check out the Perfect RIA podcast. You can subscribe to it on Apple or anywhere else. Be sure to give it 5 stars. Whatever. Whether you like it or not, give it 5 stars. You can buy my book, Deliver Massive Value. It's on Amazon or wherever, not wherever books are sold. It's on Amazon. And then if you're ready to transform, if you say, listen, this sounds good, but I know I'm just going to get excited and not do it, come join us end of September in Tempe, Arizona. And you can find that at theperfectria.com. All the details are there.
Jarvis, this was awesome.
Delzi, it's my honor, man. Like I said at the beginning, that was not fluff. It was my wholesaler that changed my life. Michael Appleby is still one of my best friends to this day. Had that not happened, right, we wouldn't be having this discussion, the book, the podcast, none of this stuff would exist. I'm sure at some point I would have just washed out of the business.
It's funny you say that because that's what I hope that an advisor comes back to me 10, 15 years from now. I've got a lot of young bucks that watch this and say, Delzi, I saw Jarvis, I saw Aaron, I saw, I've got multiple coaches on this, Libby Grywe.
Yeah.
Everyone you mentioned, I've had as a guest, which is pretty cool. Man, my head's getting bigger.
It's really cool, man. It's your commitment to delivering value to your advisors. I appreciate what you're doing for advisors, man. And we got to schedule a thing in person. If you like this episode, be sure to give it 5 stars as well. But send Delzi an email. Be like, dude, get Jarvis out here. We'll get Steven out here as well. We'll talk taxes. We'll come out to Philly.
Guys, that is a serious consideration.
Let's do it, man.
A workshop with him, his brother, and maybe another guest. Secret guest. And doing it on site in the Philly area. So
let's do it.
All right, brother.
I love it.
Hey,
man.
thank you so much.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate it, man. Have a great day. Happy planning, everybody.
Bye-bye.